Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Into the Darkness, the show where we take a dive into the horror genre. My name is Steve Fitzgerald, I'm your host, and I'm joined, as always, and I wouldn't have it any other way, by my amazing co-host, Sarah Lynham, today. Hello, Sarah.
Hello. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty well, actually. I mean, not to always be the British, weather talking person. Wow,
Why
I
not?
couldn't have said that more weird.
Sorry, it
not
makes
to
up,
be a
makes
person
up
who
for my
brings up
intro
weather.
last episode. You're right, so that's okay.
It just goes to show that we are just real people. Definitely not AI because we talk like really weird. But yeah, not to always bring up the weather is what I meant to say. But it's so nice that it was raining last night and the temperatures like dropped off and it just feels like we're starting to get a little bit autumnal and the sort of cloudy grey vibe outside. I'm really
Living
into that.
for it.
Very, very happy.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think we missed the rain last night here, but it's definitely cooler today and approaching, the very, very low end of the 20s by the time this episode comes out. So sorry if you love the heat, but we can't wait for it to get really cold again. So, mild. That's, let's not lose our way. But looking better outside. And on today's episode, we are continuing our journey into hell, our journey through the Hellraiser franchise. So if this is your first time joining us, welcome. You've got a little bit of homework to go and do before you pop back to us, because we are on films 7 and 8 of the Hellraiser franchise, so Deader and Hellworld, respectively. And that is what we're going to be doing for this episode and the next episode, which will be double feature episodes featuring 2 Hellraiser films. And then the episode after that will be the Hellraiser reboot and sort of an overlook of the franchise as a whole. So what are we in? So we're over halfway now, well over the halfway point. How's it working for you?
It has been a roller coaster of maybe roller coaster is generous because that implies a lot of adrenaline and fun. It's been a little bit of like whiplash at times. But I've really enjoyed it actually, and obviously I enjoyed chatting to you about it, so that's been really fun. But like I think it's been interesting to see where the franchise has gone to, considering where it started, and trying to find the good in some of these odd choices that are being made.
Yes.
Which I'm sure that we'll delve into as we start talking about Deader and Hellworld.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. I feel that I have both experienced both pleasure and suffering over the course of so far. Particularly with, the last episode, so film 6 and then today's ones, film 7 and 8, they're films that I think I've only seen, particularly these 2 today, once before, and that was when they first come out. So, it's been interesting rewatching them and seeing whether these, 20-year-old opinions that I have of them have stayed the same or whether they've evolved at all. And I'll probably talk a little bit about that, particularly once we get started in a moment. But what's kind of nice about it being a double feature today is that these 2 films, not only are we doing them in the same episode, but they were shot back to back, really. I think at the tail end of the year in Romania, they shot both of these films over October to November or October to December. And so quite fitting today that we discuss them together. But we will begin in the most sensible place, I think, and that is with the 7th film in the Hellraiser franchise, the unfortunately titled Hellraiser Deader, which I do think may be among the worst. What do you call these sort of extra titles, when there's the title and then the little bit that comes on the end.
Is it just subtitle, or am I?
Yeah, I think it is.
Swinging the wrong way for that.
Yeah, no. When I sort of tried to check it, I couldn't. differentiate because it kept going, a subtitle is something that pops up at the bottom. It's like, yeah, I know what a subtitle is. Let's say it's going to be our subtitle. I think it might be among the worst subtitles for any film that ever existed ever. And
absolutely.
And more bizarrely, thinking about what the Deaders are, it doesn't make sense. Why do they call themselves that? Shouldn't they be like Alivers? You know, they come back from the dead. Hellraiser Aliver. I mean, it's no better, is it?
I think, no. Well, in my head, I'm thinking, did they have any sort of spitballing conversation about what to call them? And why, if they did, why did they land here? Where else were they before this? And Deader was the best option?
I mean, it's one of those, we'll stay here all night if we have to, isn't it? You know, we're not leaving this room until we come up with a good title. And then I'm assuming narcotics and nothing gets done. Hellraiser Deader started as a... I think we spoke about this a little bit last episode, which was that, you know, there was with Inferno, which we both liked, there was a conversation about there's sort of rumours that it wasn't a Hellraiser script and was sort of twisted into one during pre-production. And then after that, the scripts do very much become, pre-existing scripts that are twisted around to give the Hellraiser treatment. And I do think that the working title for the original script for this was Deader, which is even more, but I don't even know what the word is. Surprising.
It's just making less and less sense, right? Like it's I don't know. I'm not saying it's a setup to fail, but it just feels like there are so many other words within the English language. Like, I don't know. Like something like revenant, maybe could have been more interesting.
That's a cooler word, isn't it? For sure. I mean, that's I don't know. I mean, literally. I can't think of many words that would be less enticing, really, because even though it's the name of the cult in the film, we'll get into the plot and stuff. We'll moan about the title for a little bit, and then we'll head into the movie. But you know, it's not even saying that if it's the name of the cult in the film, but if you haven't seen the film, it just looks ridiculous, doesn't it? Because it's sort of saying Hellraiser. Yeah. They're even more dead in this one, whatever that means. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it the worst thing about the film?
It makes me think. Is it? Yeah. No. Is it trying to like? Is it trying to evoke the kind of idea of like Deadites? Is it trying to do that, but not that? Like it's what it feels like it's doing. A sort of. But you know, maybe this is me just being very generous, but like, it does feel a bit like, oh, this is a great word, Deadite, but we can't say that. But we need something similar, something that, you know, when you bring something back, which again, it doesn't make sense, does it? Because deader implies that it's more dead, as opposed to being brought back to it doesn't make sense.
Linking in with that sort of, as you said, that sort of evil dead, almost Evil Dead thing, you know, with some of the lines Pinhead gets in this film and the one that's coming up afterwards, you do feel there might be some terrible homage, like, you think you're dead now, you'll be deader by dawn, you know. It's just I don't know, but we're stuck with it. It exists, it's there, and so what is the plot of Hellraiser Deader? We've just watched it. We may be asking the same question. So director Rick Bota comes back, who directed Hellseeker. So you know, he's back for this film and the film after, meaning I think he's the only director to direct more than one Hellraiser film. And to his credit, for everything that we may have said about Hellseeker and maybe about to say about the other two films, you can't say that they're incredibly similar to each other, I don't think. I do think there's, you know, and I guess I'd like to say that's because they're trying to do something different each time, but maybe it is just because these were free scripts that were never meant to end up here.
Yeah, I would say that, like, to its credit, that is interesting and keeps you. I always find that with the films going into them, because I don't have any context, it always feels like we're doing something new, and going somewhere different. And actually, the start of both of them, I was like, oh, I'm curious as to where we're going. Like, I'm willing to kind of forgive plenty, because I think at this point, I think I'm going in with relatively low expectations, and I want to be. I want something to be good, but I think I'm sort of going in as more forgiving than I probably would to just something in general. But I've always been a bit intrigued about what direction we're going in, and I think that is an interesting thing that they don't disappoint on. Like, it doesn't feel like we're kind of just rinse repeating something that hasn't worked in the past. It's almost like we're going, oh, let's try something else. Let's try something else. Let's try something else.
Yeah.
Until
you feel that they're whatever their failures are, it's not at this point. It doesn't feel like it's the failure is because they're trying to emulate what's already happened. It's Again, it's hard. I don't know whether to say trying something new, because again, these aren't stories that were meant to. But there is at least something. There is some element of lore building in these two. They do expand on whether it's satisfying or not. They do expand on the mythology. So even though they were never meant to be Hellraiser films, what has been put in there isn't just here's Pinhead and he's there for no apparent reason. They do, however half-assed it might seem, attempt to do something with it. For better or for worse. So in Deader, 2005's Hellraiser Deader, we follow reporter Amy Klein, who here is played by Carrie Wura, I think. I'm sorry, Carrie, if I've got your name wrong, but Carrie Wura. And she is a reporter who is asked by her boss to go to investigate what appears to be both the death and resurrection of a young girl, which they have a videotape of. And she heads to Romania to investigate it, and from there, the cult of the Deaders, which are people that claim they have the ability, or rather a cult that has a leader who has the ability to resurrect people once they kill them. And from then on in, the box turns up for some reason, and Pinhead shows up as well, and things go on from there. So let's talk about initial, because we always do a bit at the start where we almost start at the end, which is we say, what did you think? So I'm going to ask you, Sarah, what did you think of Hellraiser Deader when the credits rolled? Overall,
when the credits rolled, I was still a bit confused, I'll be honest. I was confused about ideas that were opened up, and then kind of not really, kind of conquered in a very strange way. And I got to the end thinking, am I supposed to have thought that someone succeeded here? Did they? Yeah, it was very, very confusing, which was frustrating because I was watching the start of the film and I thought that being in Romania was a really interesting location. It was nice to kind of move away from Britain and America. I really like that kind of the gritty style that it kind of took on, which felt like it was heading back towards what the first couple of films kind of had a little bit of. It was less kind of shiny Hollywood feeling, which I really liked. I really liked the idea of, despite the name, the idea of the cult and this kind of this character that had this power to bring people back and what that meant, and I was trying to figure out what the connection was to everything. But when it started to sort of explain itself, it just got more confusing, and I was like, I don't understand what you're trying to achieve here, and I felt like at times it looked like we were on side with Pinhead, which I was a bit confused about. And as a lover of the franchise so far, despite everywhere that it's been, Pinhead is meant to be kind of villainous, even though that's how he's been painted up until this point. Especially with the Hollywood ones, it felt like the idea is that we're meant to go, oh, he's scary, we're scared of him. But there was almost kind of are they trying to work together? Are we trying to stop the guy who's related to Le Marchand. It was just a lot, and I didn't really understand who was meant to be like where the core of the story was, because it just kind of threw so many different things in, and I didn't. Yeah, I just got very confused, quite frankly, and I'm still not sure if I know if the ending makes sense.
Oh, Sarah, I'm not sure that the people that made it know what's going on, let alone, I feel like more than any of the others so far, this is the one that suffers the most from its non-origins as a Hellraiser script, because it is very much it feels like it's doing two very different things, neither of them particularly successfully. We have this investigation of the cult, and then how the cult ties into the box, and the the events that unfold, and why exactly Pinhead is there. And I feel like the creation of the leader of the cult's link to it's Winter, isn't it? It's Winter.
Yeah, Winter.
It's towards the end we find out that it's Winter Le Marchand, because of course it is, and and it does feel like the goal of the cult is. It feels either it makes no sense, or it's unclear, or it indeed feels like it sort of changes depending on what is necessary. I think it comes as we come towards the end, we find out that what he wants is to, why is he resurrecting people? Because it seems to be that he only needs this one person that he can resurrect, but they have to be able to open the box, because he can't open the box. Even though, because they say something like that, you have to be a certain level of depravity or something, but he can't open it. The big bad of the film can't open the box. So it's all very, this needs to happen for us to go anywhere, rather than this makes any narrative anything satisfactory in terms of its narrative, in terms of moving us forward properly. It doesn't. I think for me, in terms of where I stand on the film, is that with pretty much every one of these ones that was it, so sort of 6, 7, 8 particularly, that I have rewatched. As I said, I've only seen them probably once before, maybe more than once, Hellseeker, and I really recall disliking Hellseeker. I still don't, as I said last week, I still don't think it's good, but I don't feel like I loathed it as much as I did when I first watched it. I just thought, this is quite bad, rather than, this makes me annoyed. It's, with Hellworld, the one after this one, I remember feeling a little bit more favourable. Not that I thought it was good, but that I'd had a better time with it. With Deader, I basically didn't remember anything, and to be honest, rewatching it this time, I kind of get why. There's not really any. It's kind of amazing that the film that sort of has the most, because I think imagery-wise, there's some quite sort of out there stuff here, and in terms of nudity, for instance, it has by far the most nudity of any of the. I think more nudity in Deader than the rest of the films combined. It doesn't serve any real purpose other than to go, oh look, someone's got their top off again. It's not sexy or titillating or anything it sort of wants to be, but it happens, and I think that that there's a character in this film, so the character of what's the name of the head of the newspaper that sends her there? Is it Simon?
The British guy.
Yeah.
Oh God. Simon sounds
Charles,
right.
Charles, I think, but he's played by an actor called Simon Guns, and he speaks an awful lot so he doesn't say anything unless it's sort of faux profound. I feel like everything he says in the film induced my eyes to sort of roll back in my head, and so on that, no, I would like to state that according to Bruce Springsteen, it's hard to be a saint in the city. But I would wager that it's harder to find something really positive to say about Hellraiser Deader. I just think that it's so. I don't know why that popped into my head earlier. It was like, that's rubbish, I'll use that. And I just feel like it's sort of it sort of meanders along, doesn't it? It suffers from the same thing that the last film does, which is that it's incredibly serious, incredibly po-faced. You know, there is no fun to be had, and that's cool. I love a feel-bad film, right? I love a film. Yeah. I don't want to feel good at the cinema or when I'm watching a film. I want it to, you know, I'm all for it. Make me feel like shit. But when the film's bad, it becomes boring, doesn't it? You know, this is really the big issue here, is that I think it's quite hard to remain invested in what's going on. I would say that is, you know, Carrie, who plays Amy, you know, I think she does as good a job as she possibly can under the circumstances to try and hold it. And she really is the pivotal character. There's no one else here of really any real interest, I don't think. Even, you know, the cult leader is sort of, you know, not very enigmatic, you know. And I think that she's written so that her motivation at times, or the way she reacts to situations, is very, you know, there are certain things that she doesn't react in the same way that she reacted to something else of a similar style earlier on. You know, at times she's incredibly shocked, and at other times she's very stoic about things. And I don't think that's at all anything to do with ability of performer. It's just that the script is a complete mess, and she's doing her best to salvage it. I mean, what did you? So where was it that? So you were sort of intrigued with this opening idea, you know, and it is a good idea, you know, this cult that resurrects people, and I think there is a satisfying way you could tie that to the box as well. You know, we've had people resurrected in the past, you know, fruit that have been taken by the configuration, by the Cenobites. What was it that sort of lost you as it was going along, really?
I think it was the fact that so I was very much on board with this idea of the reporter going off and investigating the cult. When the cult was when she literally saw it happen and everything, I thought that was what a cool idea. Outrageous that everybody has to kill themselves in different ways, though. Like, you know, the one with the, you know, shooting her head, and the other one's just like a stab through the chest. It's like, I'm sure that like the one who shot herself in the head probably can't go outside anymore, whereas you know, our character of Amy was stabbed in the back, so she was very much able to just walk around as long as she had her coat on and her, like, you know, her little makeshift gaffer tape with Anyway. So most of this stuff was actually, like, I was okay with it. Like, I was like, okay, great, interesting story. I want to see how it works. I think it was the tying together of it just felt like Hellraiser, the box, and Pinhead were like shoehorned in to the story, and it just didn't feel like that was well thought out. Like, I think it felt like the idea was Pinhead is like annoyed or frustrated with the perversion of what the cult is doing, but I don't know, like, in my mind that doesn't really make sense, and even if that is what's going on, it almost felt like he was like, the cult leader's like, this box is like a family heirloom, and I was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, come on. Like, I think that was also a moment where I was like, he can't be related to Le Marchand, and then that being pivotal in terms of, for whatever reason, that being the reason why he couldn't open the box. I was like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense to me. Like, why can't he open the box? And what's the what's the point of having this this one person who can do both, who I can bring back, but they can also open the box, and I'm just going to keep bringing people back until I find that person. I'm like, that, I don't know, something about that felt a bit weak as well. I was like, I'm not opposed to the idea of like there being kind of someone's destiny is to fulfill something like that, but I don't know, it just felt kind of arbitrary. It felt like as long as I, you know, do it to enough people, will eventually figure out who it is, without there being, it would have been more interesting if Amy had been related to Le Marchand and that was the reason why she had to be the one, because then that feels like you have more like connection as opposed to it being the cult leader. But if it had just been a film about a cult leader who somehow was able to tap into the power to bring people back, that would have been interesting. But I guess I don't know what your sort of like resolution for that is, aside from maybe somebody who thinks the idea of doing that is inherently bad. But I don't know, like, it just felt it genuinely feels like a film where they shoehorned in the Hellraiser element of it. They were like, oh, let's put Pinhead in here, let's put the box in here, and their attempt at trying to make it make sense just didn't work for me at all.
No, because even in Inferno, where Pinhead's role is more of the sort of almost like a sort of a judge. He's there to punish someone who has sinned. We said there's that sort of like you take your sins to the other side, and Pinhead is there as this character that fulfills punishment. It's not it's not at all really what we want from the character, but it fits within the world of that film. Within that film, I think if you take Hellraiser Inferno by itself, it's pretty good, and we are well past the point now where we can keep going. Oh, but what about 1 and 2? We've got to sort of accept it's in the past. But here. Yeah, as you say, the role is just so confused. It feels like they just need him there, but to stop this guy from getting her to open the box so that he can, I don't know, have control over the box, control over the center, but whatever the reason may be, it's just not very satisfying. And the sort of journey up until that, I mean, I think the end scene is almost a bit, we'll get to it in a minute, I guess we won't, so it almost is a bit embarrassing, I think. Some of the special effects are really dire. There's even a moment of like comic relief during the sort of mass killing at the end, and I think the last thing, who thinks that when you're watching the Cenobites do what they do, that you want someone to make a joke about it? It's so ill-conceived and badly thought out. But there's one moment earlier on in the film, because as I say, I don't think it's a surprise. I still don't think it's a good film, and I do think it's I think it's pretty forgettable even within the current period of these films we find ourselves in. But there's a scene that did actually, when I was watching it yesterday, sort of make me go, the sort of discomfort and the sort of grimness of it, really well. And that's when she goes into the apartment where she's gone to find the address that's on the envelope, and she gets there and it's all very grimy, and the guy's really unpleasant because at this point, obviously, it was a big thing in sort of like horror movies, if you go to this part of the world, everyone there is unpleasant and it's all horrible and you're going to get murdered and stuff, all this sort of like hostile attitude about particular parts of the world. But she arrives there and the guy's unhelpful and he's like, oh, what smell? And you think, oh, you're just being, they're writing this just so he can be as grim and as unpleasant as possible, whatever. But she gets into the apartment, and when you see the body, so you see quite a good shot actually down the hallway, and you see the body of this young lady that is hanging, sitting on the toilet and hanging, and her eyes are completely whitened. And I have to say, it was quite a shocking image. I was quite sort of like, by it. And then when she goes in there, as she's trying to get around her, and the body's sort of wavering a bit, and it's holding the box, I thought that moment you really got a sense of not what we want from Hellraiser, the sort of pleasure pain dynamic, but a sense of just there being something really awful going on, and a necessity to sort of solve it. And it was sort of it worked. It was satisfying in a way that I don't think is really matched later on when you're on this train that just has this carriage of people doing shit, and this, I thought that bit, did that moment strike you as particularly effective, or?
Yeah, definitely, and I agree with what you're saying about the way it's shot as well. Like not just the actual first image of the woman in the bathroom, but there are several moments where she's just walking around corridors and she sort of looks down a corridor, and you get this beautiful like off-center shot of her, and sort of really dim orange light, and I'm like, that looks really great. Like they've really done a good job of like, I think I quite liked the kind of grimy feel of it, and because this is still quite near the start, I was still very much on board and very curious as to where it was going to go. And I think the image of the woman on the toilet, and her literally like leaning forward and everything, and just like gaunt, and it looked incredible. And then sort of close up on her feet, and there's like bugs, and there's like these weird black veins all through her skin and everything as well. It was really powerful and really it made sense that she would want to figure out what's going on here, and also we know that this character clearly has a penchant for going into the darker like parts of the world in order to find the truth, and I thought this is the perfect choice, of person to be doing this. But it's interesting that normally when we meet a kind of character near the start, we meet someone who's like really like seedy and has the potential to be opening the box. Whereas I'm like, this is not her. She seems like she wants a justice and has a sense of righting the things that are wrong. And I think that comes hand in hand with being a reporter, trying to unveil the truth. Which again, it makes sense, and I think that's why the story works up until a point. I think you're right there. I think her methods are. Because we see her at the beginning sort of as part of sort of a drug den, for want of a better word, and she's obviously doing some reporting about this situation. But she's very much, and she probably has, sort of immersed herself in that world. But, there's, that's not, the same ethical quandary as what's going on in Hellraiser Inferno, for instance, where you've got this guy who is actively sort of, hurting people in order to, fulfill, his own sort of desires. I wonder whether it's, because I'm just thinking about that now, whether I think it's, because I don't think it's as successful as in Inferno, and I wonder whether that's because his character is a bit more consistently rounded, whereas hers, as I said, I don't know if you agree with me, by the way, on her character, about the fact that sort of the way she interacts at times feels a little bit uneven. I don't think you get as strong a sense of who she is as you do in Inferno. Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I feel like there's a kind of there are a couple of moments where it kind of wants to kind of explore her past and try and explain why she's got this kind of hard exterior, but like it doesn't always. I feel like because we don't learn about that. I don't even think we fully learn about it, to be honest, and that's kind of frustrating. So if we did, maybe then it would make sense of the sort of maybe more jarring responses to things, and maybe there could be more of a consistency of like, okay, so this type of thing, obviously she would respond strongly to because of her past, but she could be hard as nails about everything else if that's we only get a justifiable payoff for that if we actually know what happened to her in the past. So like it just it definitely falls flat because of that. And it's a shame, because I do actually think that Kari does a very good job, and she seems like she's quite a strong performer, but the script does not do her any favours.
No, not at all. I think she's very much trying to keep the everything afloat, really, because it does hinge on her, and she's not for her character, is, as you say, there's too much sort of unresolved about her to completely engage with the character in the way that would suck you into the film. And because the film is, as I said, very sort of serious but doesn't land, and doesn't get anywhere very fast, much like Hellseeker, although it's less fractured than Hellseeker was. You're sort of left in just a bit of a, I guess that thing where you're passively watching something, and you're trying your best to engage, and as you say, find some things in there that you really like, because there's nothing that hasn't got something worth lifting up. But I do think it's tough here, and I think by the end, when and that's not helped as well by us having not a, at least in my opinion, I don't know whether you feel the same, but not a very charismatic villain here in a deader cult leader, Winter. It just, and again, maybe because again, there's just not much to him, is there? There's not much for the actor. We should, I'll just because we like to mention everyone. So Paul Rise, who plays, I hope I'm pronouncing everyone's names right today. I'm sorry if I'm not, but Paul Rise or Paul Rees, he just isn't given enough here. He's not a very exciting villain, and what that leads you to doing is wanting the one thing that we know doesn't help these films, which is just for Pinhead to appear as often as he possibly can. So we've got somewhat, a really engaging villain to be there, but we know what happens when you get too much Pinhead. What did you make of Winter?
I think I think the biggest issue, and this is kind of the issue with the whole film, I think, is the fact that because we've also got Pinhead, it means that this cult leader, like, if he's meant to be an adversary for Pinhead, like, surely he should be way more of an impactful presence, like, in the film, because it doesn't feel like he is at all. It feels like he's, I don't know, he's quite watery and just kind of is like, I'm just kind of bringing people back, and, like, it doesn't feel very... Yeah, it feels like he doesn't even really know what he's trying to do, which means it's really hard for us to grasp onto it. And also, like I was saying earlier, there's something that feels like if this cult leader is the big bad, then does that mean that Pinhead is good? And because, you know, I mean, I know that not everything is just a case of black and white in terms of looking at it like that, but it almost looks like Pinhead is trying to appeal to Amy and say, no, you should help me, because what he's doing is actually wrong, and he shouldn't be bringing these people back. And you know, he's it's all very confusing, to be quite honest. But there were a couple of moments where Pinhead was showing up and sort of saying stuff, and I was like, is he trying to get her on side? Because I quite like that as a character choice for Pinhead, but it muddies the water of, like, what side we're meant to be on. And I think it fails in that, like, if we didn't have this other adversary, if Amy versus cult leader was all that we had, and then Hellraiser wasn't shoehorned in, and we didn't have Pinhead, maybe that would help to build that character of the cultist leader to be a bigger deal, and then maybe there'd be more opportunity for the actor to you know, get into something. But it just feels like they so much of the kind of Hellraiser franchise-ness of it feels kind of like stamped over the top of what was already an existing concept for a story. And I think that was part of the reason why I feel like it didn't work, just because we essentially had two baddies, but they weren't both technically bad. And yeah, I don't know, I think maybe there is a way that it could work, but this is not it.
No, I mean, I think that's it, is that, you know, there are... It's weird, because if something's just a bad idea, right, it's easy to just go, oh, here's a bad idea. The reason it doesn't work is because it's a bad idea, you know. But that's not necessarily what we have in any of these films, is that, you know, there's a kernel there of something that could be interesting. But at the beginning of the film, we have this scene where, you know, she's infiltrated these group of people so she can write about them. You know, slightly, you know, morally grey. There's that morally grey element again of these are people that are, you know, whether or not their lives are good or not, she's there to write a story about them. You know, and so that sets her up as this character that gets into these groups and can sort of, you know, navigate them and find her way to being trusted. And then, but here with her and Winter, there's almost an immediate standoff, isn't there? You know, there is no her pretending to be on side, or I'll get I'll get him to like me so he can divert. There is this, I need to get away from this guy almost immediately. He's a threat. And so you never get the inner workings of the cult. You never get the inner workings of Winter. And just going, oh, well, he's doing this because he's a descendant of Le Marchand feels... I mean, it's an eye roll, isn't it? You know, it's just a huge eye roll till you can see your brain. And and it does come down to the fact that it's not something they really wanted to explore. What they wanted was to take this script, the Miramax dimension, they wanted to take this script and just insert enough of this stuff into it so that they can keep churning these movies out, and because of course the main reason, which is that Deader was gonna not make any money, and Hellraiser Deader was definitely gonna make some money, and so it just it's all very cynical, and what you're left with is something that I can't imagine really satisfies anybody. I'm not even sure if it's really, you can't imagine anyone saying that, this or the one before it are their favourites or whatever it might be. It just feels kind of empty at the end of it, which I haven't felt a bit with Hellseeker, but this is the first one of them in the series where at the end of it I've just gone, oh, okay, I just felt that okay. When shall I chuck Hellworld on now? And that's that's disappointing because you want to, particularly after such a long time, I wanted to be able to sort of feel a bit more for it, or although I didn't for Hellseeker, I did at least could see some things in there that maybe worked a bit. Whereas here, I don't know, it doesn't work for me at all, really.
Yeah, and I think it is a shame because it would be great for it to be great. Like, and I feel like I'm trying to go into these even as I say with a low expectation, but I am trying to look for stuff that works, and I do feel like there are definitely things in this that work. It's just that they don't stick the landing essentially. And there was one thing that happened right at the end of this film that I was like, what are we implying that Charles's character was somehow in on it the whole time? Because he gets another reporter come in and literally sends them off on the exact same job. I'm like, what? Yeah. What is the implication here? Is he in cahoots with the cult? Is he just like, oh well, reporters are a dime a dozen, I don't really care, I'll just send somebody else off to figure out what's going on? Or is it literally like that he's meant to be involved in it? Like, I was a bit confused by that, and I wondered if this was meant to be a sort of this was all going to happen anyway. Like, Charles was kind of almost grooming Amy to get her to the point where she would be going to investigate the cult. I just thought it was a weird choice, considering there was already a lot that was thrown in at the end.
I do agree with you that I feel like it does kind of set up that he's just going to, he is going to send someone back out there again, but that maybe he's doing it. But even that doesn't really work because there is no cult anymore. They're all they're dead. They're deader.
They're deader.
They're properly deader now. They thought they were deader before. They're really fucking deader now.
Deader.
Hellraiser deader. Hellraiser dead. No, don't give them ideas. Hellraiser deader.
Oh no.
I mean, that whole moment where Pinhead, and I mean, if you thought that the Cenobites were barely used in Hellseeker in these two movies, apart from Pinhead, I mean, they just get a couple of guys to put the costume on for 20 minutes and wander through a scene, don't they? Oh, actually, there's a really egregious use of them at the end of the next film, which just the whole climax is unsatisfying because when the revelation of Le Marchand is made, you go, oh, and then the way that everyone is killed with two massive chains, you go, oh, and then anything. What would have been better than that? Anything. I think Pinhead coming over and slapping everyone to death would have been more satisfying than watching a great big chain go through everybody. He reads them to death. I just.
I'd pay good money to see that. I'd pay good money to see Pinhead read them so bad that they are the deadest now.
Yeah. Hellraiser reading is fundamental, and and it just all of that moment, and I mean, as far as the representation of Pinhead here, I think it's incredible, as we've already said, incredibly confused. Satan bless Doug Bradley for just, still sort of committing to the bit, really. And, I do think the only time his the performance hasn't worked for me is in Hellraiser 3. I just think it's very hammy. Ever since, from 4 onwards, he's so sort of back on form, being given, injecting as much gravitas. And that is what the problem with that Hellraiser 3 depiction of Pinhead is. The gravitas is gone, whereas here, he's given it, even though, I mean, he must know what he's in by now, but he still turns up and gives it his all, and he's awesome, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm really curious, because I know that you mentioned there's a point where he isn't involved anymore. I'm really curious as to what point that is, because having watched this one and Hellworld, I was like, and he still said yes to these? And interesting,
well, this
okay.
Is it. Yeah, I mean, you know, it is a. Well, I guess we'll talk about this in a moment, but it is a real. I mean, so he leaves at the end of Hellworld. Hellworld is Doug Bradley's final Hellraiser film. And when you watch 9, I think, despite everything we've just said about Deader, you know, I do think it was the right moment to call it a day, really. You know, and some, it's not just the script, that there are some circumstances around it that I think, you know, sort of make sense why he's no longer a part of it. But that's a conversation for a couple of weeks time. But no, you are quite right. You do think, and you said yes to this, and then something else wasn't okay. So, you know, Deader is released. It comes out straight to DVD. It makes enough money to warrant, you know, Miramax continuing their, you know, complete decimation of the, you know, of all the things that make the franchise great, really. And that leads us, you know, into the shot at the same time, also shot in Romania, Pains and Pleasures of Hellraiser Hellworld. As we've already said, Rick Bota returns. Whole new cast, whole new story, whole new idea, whole new setting, really, because it, you know, I don't think it's as apparent here where the film was shot, and it feels like much more of a sort of a, you know, American production. Just a little bit of trivia here, which I did read, and that there was a little bit of a difficulty working between the American and Romanian crews because of the language barrier. So that would probably add as well to the sort of the stresses of making the production. And I do think the reason they shot to was, of course, partially, almost entirely because of budgetary. It was just cheaper to go out there and do it all there and make 2 films. But I also think maybe the agreement that was reached with, you know, the industry in Romania was that 2 films would be shot to make them, you know, so that the local cast and crew could be, you know, paid a particular amount. So that there we are. There's just a little bit of, you know, tiny bit of the goings on for this production. So Hellworld, a very different film to the one we've just had. You know, the plot here is that a group of friends at the start are mourning the funeral, the loss of their friend who was obsessed with a Hellraiser Hellworld video game. And then 2 years later, they are all invited to a party to celebrate the game, a celebration of the game, or just an event to get like-minded fans all together to partake, really. And then everything sort of, you know, goes awry, as is to be expected. A couple of interesting cast members here, particularly, you know, we'll do the full cast in a little bit, but particularly Lance Henriksen, who, you know, will be known to genre fans for his many amazing roles and performances in horror movies, you know, Aliens, Near Dark, you know, Pumpkinhead. He's done them all. You know, and it's great to see him here. But more surprisingly, I think, and you know, to inject, you know, a real bit of where were they at the start of their careers? Henry Cavill turns up here. Honestly,
just
like,
looking,
you know,
absolutely gorgeous as well. I'm like,
I didn't know if I was going to lead with that, but oh my word, you know, just
he is ridiculously good looking, isn't he? And like an unmistakable. And I know obviously he's played Superman, but his chin is just so unmistakable. I must not have been paying attention to the opening credits because I didn't clock his name. And then when he came on, I was like, that looks an awful lot like Henry Cavill, like a very young Henry Cavill. And bless him, I love that he's doing an American accent. I'm just going to quickly brush over this, but like there are moments where that is not consistent.
No.
And I think I think it really works for him. Like, he does have that kind of, handsome jock kind of aesthetic to him. So it works. It's a great choice for the style of the film and for the character that he's playing. But yeah, thankfully he gets better with the American accent as his sort of film career goes on. But this is there's a couple of moments where I'm like, no, you're British, we know you're British.
There's I think here that you know what the sort of let's quickly go through the cast here. So we have obviously Doug Bradley is back for the final time in film as Hellraiser. Lance Henriksen, who we've just mentioned. Christopher Jackett as Jake. Catherine Winnock as Chelsea. Carrie Payton as Derek. Henry Cavill, as we've just mentioned, as Mike. And we'll do. Go on, let's do everybody. Anna Tolpert as Alison and Stellian Urian as Adam here. And so it's an ensemble cast that we have going on in Hellraiser, Hellworld.
And so many of them have gone on to do other great things. Like Catherine Winnock is incredible in the Vikings TV series. If you haven't seen it, absolutely go and watch it. She's amazing as Lagatha. Carrie Payton is an insane voiceover artist. He's done so many things, as well as The Walking Dead. I don't know too much about the other ones, unfortunately, but those were... So obviously, we know Henry Cavill, but Carrie and Catherine, I was like, this is amazing. What a star-studded cast we have. We're very spoilt for performances here and some incredible... tonally, it's the film is very different, but I think everybody gets the tone, and they've done a really good job with it, and it's very satisfying to see the performances of the characters in this.
I completely agree. I think this is a very game cast, as you say. Several of them, clearly, go on to do some really great stuff, and it's really reflected here. No one is sort of phoning it in. I don't think. Which we say, you're in the 8th Hellraiser film. It'd be really easy to, but these are people that want to be, go on to do, keep working and love their craft and. You get a sense that they had a hope, at least, that I don't know about the filming conditions, but that this group sort of got on with each other, and there's it's the first time, maybe the first sort of properly ensemble cast that we've. Oh no, that's not just an ensemble cast since the. Trying to think which film I would say that, but certainly since the 4th film. This is the first time we've had more than. Really one person to focus on and their game, and they inject some fun into the film here, for sure. So let's begin at the end, as we always do, and the credits have rolled. What you've sat through Hellraiser Dead and now you've just sat through Hellraiser Hellworld. What did you think?
I was way more annoyed with how this film ended, quite frankly. I was really, and we've spoken about this before, the whole it was a dream the whole time. That concept comes up, and I was just like, I cannot believe you've done this to me, because I really, really, really enjoyed where the film was, where it started. I thought it was very cheesy, but I was like, I'm happy to be on board with that. And I loved that it was about a video game, inspired by Hellraiser. I'm like, great. I would love that. We know that I love that because we're going to play the game when it comes out. But it was very it was great and star-studded and well performed. But as I was watching it throughout the sort of middle section where they're at the party, and I'm like, I would go to this party. It looks like a great time. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's drinks are flowing and everyone's having a great time. It looks like a perfect horror teen movie setup, and it was great. I'm very on board. This is going to be fun. But there were so many moments throughout it where I was like, this also doesn't feel like a Hellraiser film. And the moments where Pinhead was coming up, it felt quite it felt more like Saw, or it felt more we're just gonna kill someone in a gratuitous way. I mean, there's even a comment where someone walks out with their tits out, a gratuitous tit shot, and they're like, no, necessary tit shot. And I was like, this is fun. I actually really enjoy this, but the payoff was so frustrating that it basically MacGuffined away all the weird things that didn't make sense throughout the film. So there were several moments throughout it where I was like, why are they doing that? How have they got there? What is happening here? This doesn't make sense. Why are there pre-programmed names on these phones where these phones were meant to be like anonymous phones that related to numbers on a mask? Like, it doesn't make sense. And then at the very end, you find out that what's happened is they've been drugged and been given like suggested stuff via the phones, being buried. I'm like, I was so annoyed. I was really, really, really frustrated. I think because I'd enjoyed the start of it so much. So yeah, it just felt really. And we have Chekhov's meat hook as well. I'm bringing back the Chekhov.
We do. It's back. Chekhov's back in a big way. We've missed you since
it's great. I wouldn't
Play.
touch that if I were you. And then it's like, oh yes, he explains what happened, and then it's a nice little planting of the seed. I'm like, we're going to be back here. This is a really creepy, really nice like setting. The sort of abattoir with all these formaldehyde fetuses and severed heads.
A little bit of everything, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the reason I'm so frustrated is because I enjoyed the setup and everything so much, and I was willing to forgive the little moments that I was like, oh, that doesn't make sense, but that's okay. Like maybe they didn't have someone in for continuity. Like I think at one point when Jake is holding Chelsea and she dies, he's like stabbed her accidentally, thinking it was Pinhead with the letterhead, the letter opener, and he pulls it out. And she falls onto the ground, and then she's like, oh, and she's bleeding. And then, like, 2 shots later, it's just back in her chest. I was like, how did that happen? None of this is making sense. But yeah, unfortunately, they essentially, by saying they were drugged and they were given suggestions directly into their brain, means that any continuity problems essentially are MacGuffined away by this magical, like, they were drugged. I'm like, fuck off. I was, sorry, I'm quite annoyed by it.
No, that's fine.
More so than Deader. I felt like they really, they ruined it for me.
Well, I guess, I guess, like for me, what that ending does is allow for basically Pinhead, who has been sort of a slasher character throughout the entire film, to have not actually done those things. That's what it does. But to go back to the start for me, because I feel similar, ignoring the thoughts about the end, because we'll get into those in a minute. But as far as, like, by this point, I was desperate to have a good time, after Hellseeker and Deader, because as I said, they're just so serious and they don't really land. And, you sort of say, and the worst thing you can be is bored during a film, and I do think that they're hard films to really engage with. And at this point, I was willing to accept a bit of levity, a bit of cheese, a bit of silliness, even though those are things that we actively criticised in Hellraiser 3, and even Pinhead being a bit of a slasher in Hellraiser 3, these are all things I did not care for in that film. But by this point, just give me a good time. And I do think for at least half of it, this ain't perfect, but it is a good time. It's fun.
Absolutely.
They're, are they all a bit annoying? Yeah, they're all a bit annoying. Does it? Are you sitting there going, why is Pinhead lobbing off someone's head with a cleaver? But fine, it's okay.
Yeah.
Does this film set up this whole idea of a Hellraiser game and then at some point basically completely abandon that idea so that it's completely irrelevant to the plot? Yes, it does.
Yes.
Fine, because because it is for the most part just a little bit of light silliness that we can all get on board with, and sometimes you want sometimes you want the haute cuisine, and sometimes you want a burger, and this is a burger that is up until a point served in a not in the best way, but in a sort of junk foody way that at 11 p.m. at night when you're coming home from a gig is really, really good. And does the ending bother me as much? I don't know, actually. I don't know. I think that I knew when I was watching it, I was like, oh no, Sarah's not going to like that. I do, because I think it does it explain everything away in a way that is a bit, oh, well, that didn't really happen, so you can't be annoyed at us, Hellraiser fans, because Pinhead didn't really do these things. Yes, it definitely does that. But does it also mean that until the scene right at the end where he opens the box, which I thought was completely unnecessary, does it mean that this is kind of, one of those sequels where you thought that the lead, the bad guy was there, but actually he's not been present the whole time, and you've had the, Friday the 13th Part 5, where it's not really, sorry for spoilers for this, but, it's not, the film's been out ages, so I'm just going to go for it. Friday the 13th Part 5, where it isn't really Jason, or, Halloween 3, where Michael Myers isn't in it. This could have been, oh, you thought all along this was Pinhead doing this. No, the Cenobites have not been present during this movie at all. We got you. But then at the end, it undoes that by him opening the box and Pinhead turning up. So it almost, if you didn't like the first, MacGuffin, this has all been, going on, they're all buried underground, then I guess that bit at the end is just there to go, oh, don't worry, everyone, real Pinhead. All right.
Yeah, which is almost as bad, quite frankly.
Oh, yeah.
Because I mean, it would have been so much better to be like, haha, don't worry about it. This is not canon. Because, if anything, there's a sort of implication that because it's a video game, that Hellraiser exists as something that is watched and absorbed and inspires stuff. So it makes more sense for it to be, actually, no, it is a movie. It's almost more meta, which I think would be way more interesting. I still would have been frustrated by the switcheroo. But I think, and mainly because, like you were saying, the representation of Pinhead at this point is, we've gone back to number 3. Frank says in the first film, pain and pleasure indivisible. It's very much divisible. There's two very, very divided things. And fine. And I think there was so much of it that I was willing, same as you, I think I wanted to have a good time, and I did have a good time, and then it felt like someone, punched me in the ovaries, and I was like, how dare you? But yeah, I do think that it felt arbitrary having Pinhead show up at the end, just because they felt like they had to go, oh no, what this guy has done is actually bad, and it makes sense that he would be the right level of depraved to, I don't know why I said it like that, depraved, but depraved, the right level of depraved, so they took him. I don't know, and then you've got two Cenobites just standing there like, hello, yes, we're here to help, we're here to stand behind Pinhead, because we can't just have Pinhead, we've got to have two of his friends.
Yes, and then they murdered the host at the end, after, the revelation that he was, at the very, very beginning we see this character called Alex, isn't it? Is that the name of the brother?
Adam,
thank you very much. So we see Adam, and, we find out that the whole film is themed around, he has died, because he got too into the game, and the revelation is that Lance Henriksen, the host, is his father, who is taking revenge on the jump, but for reasons we still don't really get explained. We don't know what they did wrong other than enjoy the game as well. But no, and that was a couple of things that were sort of, half-baked about it, that his brother, Jay, he's got all this animosity towards them, but we never really find out exactly why there's this other than we need a bit of conflict so he can look really sad most of the film, and they can, but that all kind of works. It's okay. It's not well, there's no depth to it, but it serves its purpose, and as we say, maybe at this point we're not, once we realise what the game is here, we're not looking for that, we're just looking for a good time, and I do think the kills could be much better in the film if that's what we're going for, just a sudden lobbing off of the head, or this, as you say, this saw device that never really makes contact. It just sort of stays over here but squirts some blood out. And then we have the Cenobites do their only, kill in the film at the end to Lance Henriksen, where they swing basically a blade on a chain, and it like divides him into. It looks dreadful. And it's. Yeah, I mean, the kills are fun. They could be a bit better, I think, but they're fun for what they are.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the meat hook kill, and I knew it was coming, but I was excited for it anyway. I was like, this is going to be great. I love that you've set this up for me. I didn't appreciate Chekhov's asthma inhaler though. That was some bullshit. Like that, honestly, that whole section of him chasing it on the floor, like, oh, where are my glasses? I've lost my glasses. Like, I'm like, are you? Yeah. And there's a moment where he's like just about to grab it, and it gets kicked out from under his hand. I'm like, would you not just, slam your hand down on it if you literally? There was that whole moment, and then going downstairs to try to get it out of the grate, and like you could clearly see that the grating was already coming off the wall, and he's like, oh, I just can't get this off. I'm gonna have to unscrew it. And I'm like, oh my god. Oh dear! Yeah. And then all he gets is decapitated. I'm like, come on, a little more would be.
Yeah. No, you've seen it, but it's just one of those sort of, been done a million times things, isn't it? If only the thing I needed to be okay was, it isn't, but oh no, hang on, it's a firework has shot it up into the air. I need to run after it. Oh no, it's now attached to the back of that squirrel. Oh, and so it just.
I think the reason why that particular one didn't really work for me, this like sort of just introducing the idea of a debilitating thing like asthma and having an inhaler and having to chase it, like some of that was for me a little bit unrealistic in terms of the representation, but I think it was because all the other characters seemed to have a kind of archetype to them. So Anna was kind of this kind of like, she had a gothy, witchy, The Craft kind of vibe to her. Great, loved that. We had Chelsea's character, who was blonde, bombshell, but also dressed like Buffy, so she's like a badass. So like I was like, love this homage as well. Mike's character is very much the jock, but I feel like Derek's character was like the jock's friend. And I think maybe what they wanted to do was probably meant to have like a nerdy type or like a dorky type, but he wasn't that at all. And then you had Jake, who's like the moody best friend. No, sorry, what was that?
No, sorry, no. I felt it was meant to be more sort of the sort of fun, loving sort of character there, really. But yeah, I guess like. I mean, it just the territory of these things, I guess, is that when you do a larger sort of cast and it's the type of film it is, you're just gonna settle for, as you say, these sort of stock things. I mean, I just feel that maybe. Do I feel we needed more there? I don't know, because at this point I'm willing to settle for less as long as it's fun. This is what it's reduced me to. So, I mean, if Pinhead was doing this stuff in, there's that meme, isn't there, of like someone like turning away and then looking like this, and it's Pinhead murdering people for no reason in Hellraiser 3. Pinhead murdering people for no reason in Hellraiser Hellworld. Because at this point, I've been beaten down, and it's okay as long as I guess the end kind of makes good for me. Even though, am I satisfied that they're all underground and none of it took place? I don't know if I'm satisfied. I just don't know whether I'm particularly angry about it. Yeah.
Not as much as me. I get it. I was like,
no,
unforgivable.
Not as much as, yeah. I guess as well, it's more annoying because you were on board for quite a great deal of it, and having a good time. And then you think, please don't do that one thing I don't want you to do. So what? Let's talk about. So in terms of this is Pinhead's last. Doug Bradley's last performance as Pinhead in a Hellraiser film. He will be back in Hellraiser Revival, this little known game that we've barely mentioned since we started. I guess I sort of know the answer, but is this the send-off that he deserved?
I think what's frustrating, the straight answer is no, but I think what's frustrating is that it could have been. Like, I think it could have been a really nice moment of incorporating him as more of a slasher character, considering the slasher setup that we have for the film, and just fully leaning into that, and then that being like, well, look, we've taken him from, if you then compared the start to the end, you'd be like, well, this is quite a spectrum that we've crossed. Like, he started out as the sort of very poignant, very, very thought out, very, three-dimensional kind of conceptualized like idea, and then he's become a slasher character. Fine. Like, what a great span of things to do, and don't do anything else, because it's already kind of, we're going into ruined territory now, and I think it probably is, while it maybe isn't the best send off, I think I don't know what else we have for him to do. I even feel like these two films he shouldn't have been in them, but
yeah,
he was. Absolutely. And we can't do anything about that now.
No, it is what it is. So looking at it's the character obviously carries on in the movies, carries on in the comics, is coming back in the game. There's also a novel that was released by Clive Barker called The Scarlet Gospels. I'm just giving, by the way, here I think maybe the send off that I would have liked Pinhead to have had in these films, even though we're not at the end, but we are at the end of Doug Bradley's tenure, and I think the film I would have liked so in the Scarlet Gospels, we see sort of the end of Pinhead, and also the character Harry Damour, who is in a short story by Clive, The Last Illusion, in one of the Everville books, and is also the lead in the adaptation of the short story Lord of Illusions, which is the detective in the the movie, which is by the way, if you haven't seen Lord of Illusions, directed and written by Clive Barker from his short story, it is a really fantastic underseen 90s horror movie that has some problems, but it's really cool. And the character in that, Harry Damour, him and Pinhead have this face-off in the Scarlet Gospels, which isn't really as satisfying as you'd like it to be, but it happens. And I would have liked to see, one, big budget Doug Bradley Hellraiser where that confrontation could have happened, really. And it's a shame it didn't, but there we are. This is Doug's final Hellraiser film, and at least it's what's the best we can say? It's not a boring one, and he gets to do some murdering himself in it, and he gets to do some sort of, it's not really wisecracking, but he gets to finish each murder with a bit of a verbal flourish, and he's a legend. He's a horror legend, and Pinhead is one of the greats, despite his shaky set of movies.
Absolutely agree.
There we are. So what else can we say about Hellraiser Hellworld, really, other than if there was anything they could flesh out in this movie, surely it would be the video game. Surely it would be us getting to see a little bit more of it, rather than it just looking like a homepage on a early 2000s, well, late 90s website, which uses, lines from the first two Hellraiser films while they're clicking buttons. They seem very excited, considering how utterly dull the content is on their computer screens. I'm sure that's something you'd have liked to see a bit more of as well, just the actual Hellraiser video game and what that could have been.
100%. Yeah, that would have been really cool. And, obviously I would say something like that because we play a lot of video games and I love playing video games. But I also think that it is an interesting, development to sort of look at it in more of a meta way. And they've kind of introduced this idea, which, as you said earlier, they never bothered to do anything more with. I quite like the idea of, so if the film had done better, I can imagine a world in which they released an actual game, and I don't know if they did, that was called Hellworld, inspired by the Hellraiser franchise, and then they literally then put on a big event in a big house somewhere. It doesn't have to be people don't have to go there and have sex, but like if they did like a big party house somewhere, I think people would be so into that. Like in terms of like when I think about some of the like nostalgic things that I've been to now, like if someone were to put on an event like that today, I'd imagine it would be quite well attended. Like people love something that is like a way of being immersed in a world that you've only been able to either play a video game of or only been able to watch the film of. Like you think of things like Secret Cinema, and other companies within London who have taken a concept that everybody loves, even if it's not a specific franchise, like a theme or something like that. We love being able to go out and physically go into the worlds that we've only been able to sit at home or sit in the cinema and be a part of. So like what a cool idea. That again, like it's a shame that they didn't kind of flesh out the thing that made it real in the first place. So it would have been, how cool would it have been for them to have been able to branch out and actually release a game and like, do all of that as well. I think it just would have brought the whole thing together. But I suppose if at this point they were straight to video or straight to DVD, I guess maybe the thought of doing something like that probably wasn't in the forefront, unless it had been like a kind of cult hit, underground kind of coming out of nowhere and like doing really, really well. But they've lost out. There's a lot of potential in that. I think a lot of potential in sort of integrating forms of media. I certainly would, if Secret Cinema did a Hellraiser inspired event, I would be all over that. I would love to do that. Yeah. Anything like that. Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree entirely with everything you just said. I do think that, and it's weird, isn't it? Because you look at the horror landscape now, where we're at the minute, and we are in, people can say, all the best films, like this, that, and we're in a golden age at the moment. There is, it is a really, really great time to be a horror fan. In whatever medium you consume it, be it many or just like film or books or whatever it might be, all of them are just really riding a high. And we're looking back at this film from 20 years ago where, the rights were owned by this company that just kept, just did the bare minimum to retain them, and you think that is just, you hope with like these amazing, production companies that we have now, that whoever gets these rights next, I don't know who owns the rights for Hellraiser at the moment. I think they're actually with Clive at the minute, where they should be. But you just hope wherever this franchise goes after the comics that are coming out soon and the Hellraiser revival, when inevitably the next film is made. I won't talk too much about the reboot because we're going to discuss it in a few 4 weeks time. And and that is a real, a real attempt to start this all going again, like these other things that are coming. But you just hope that the future is brighter for Hellraiser, which it almost certainly is. We've got these things that look really great coming out, and it's just a shame to see that 20 years ago it was treated. And this is no reflection on the cast and the crew that worked on these direct-to-DVD films. I'm sure they set out to make as good a film as they possibly could, under difficult circumstances, budgetary issues, and the rights being owned by, a production company and by people that just didn't give a shit about them and just wanted to keep the name so no one else could have them. But nonetheless, we have a little way to go yet before we emerge into an optimistic future for the franchise. But overall, I do think Hellworld is it's a fun enough time, isn't it? The ending notwithstanding, it's certainly not what you expect, and it turned out all right. Yeah.
I definitely think I wouldn't have had such an extreme response to it if I didn't enjoy it. So I think that hopefully says enough. Like, if I was indifferent to the film, I would just roll my eyes and be like, well, that happened. But yeah, I think I'm still going to stand by it and say that I had a really good time and that I think it's good. When it's good, it's good. There are moments where it was frustrating, but that's that's fine. I think it eliciting a response is a really good thing. It's better than it being putting me to sleep.
Yes, that is. Yeah, at this point, if it can make me smile, have some fun, then that's all good. Yeah. I was just thinking actually about like video game, not horror films based on video games, because we know the track record for that sort of thing and whatnot, and maybe that's even something we can discuss at some point. But films where where the subject of them is a horror video game, a made-up horror video game for it. And I was just thinking about, and I can't really talk about it very much because I haven't seen the film since I saw it at the cinema, but another film around the same time came out called Stay Alive, which is based around a video game that has the character of Elizabeth Bathory as the baddie in it, the countess who's sort of, the story goes that she bathed in the blood of young women to have immortality, and of course the history of the real person and the myth, I'm sure, meet somewhere in the middle, rather than the reality and the fiction. But that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head that has stayed with me, really, and it's sort of an unexplored idea, isn't it, really? That, a video game in a film that takes on a life of its own. There have been some films, but nothing that sort of lives up to the promise of it, I guess.
Yeah, I can't even think of any. I think this might be one of the first moments where the element of the video game was actually part of the plot. Like, most of the time characters might be playing a video game and you sort of they paint a sort of type of person by saying, oh, this person plays a lot of video games, and that's kind of like a stereotype incorporated within a film, but that's not necessarily an important element. Was it Ready Player One? That was also one, wasn't it?
I think
where
so.
the video game element of it was quite integral. I've also not seen it. I know that Connor has, or at least he's read the book, I think. But I think that has quite a lot of gamified reality, I think. So maybe not necessarily a version of like, the film isn't necessarily about the game being a video game. I think it's more about the sort of integration of video game and real life, which again is very interesting. And I think also, does Tron kind of fall within that category too? I'm not sure.
I don't know, because I'm trying to think what...
Or is that it was a video game and is now...
No, I'm trying to think about what my parameters are, because I'm thinking about like whether I'm thinking about a film that has a game as the main plot element, or whether I'm thinking about, it exists by itself as an important thing in there. I don't know, but I know that as soon as we finish, I'm going to think, oh, this film did it and that film did it. But what would be even nicer is if anyone is listening and currently screaming at us and with names of films, but comment for us and either let us know or remind us, jog our memories. But if you haven't seen Stay Alive,
yes, please.
Go watch that and report back as well, and I will try and track down a copy as well and rewatch it, and maybe we can reconvene as to whether it's aged well or whether there's a reason why I don't remember it too well. But I do remember seeing it at the cinema, and I do remember it was quite within the first year or two of Paul and I's relationship, and two people behind us were making a lot of noise, and it was so frustrating that we did turn around and yell at both of them. So that's one of my foundational memories of that film, is it was so frustrating that we yelled at people. So nice to know though that we've been keeping the cinema. We didn't yell at them; we were just very stern with them. But it's good to know. I'm sorry, that sounded like I was sort of back to the. Oh, we muttered under our breaths. We definitely did turn around and say something, but I'm pretty sure I didn't scream at people. But it's good to know that we've been trying to keep cinema etiquette where it should be for as long as possible. So comment underneath if you can think of a game,
good,
a film
as it should
that
be.
features. Yes, absolutely. Comment underneath if you can think of a film that features a horror video game as a central plot point, not you go into the video game, but maybe do that as well. I don't know what I want, Sarah, but I know I want it. So
We want everything, all of your suggestions, because there might be films in there that we've never seen before, and then that's an opportunity for us to go out and see something.
I completely agree. Let us know underneath. So, Hellraiser Hellworld comes out. It does. I'm imagining similar business to Deader. They both suffer from bad critical reviews. It's not entirely unfair. I know I say that around this time horror was getting a really bad rap, and it was, but these films are what they are, and I don't think any sort of mainstream publication, unless you're a horror fan, you're going to find much of worth in here to spend time with. So, I think that brings us to the end of our second double feature on Deader and Hellworld. Before we finish up, I'd just like to bring up a film that is releasing in the UK today, or at least the day that this episode releases, August 21st. And it's a film that we had the opportunity to see a few nights ago. And should we just have a little bit of a rave about it so we can finish on a really positive note, Sarah?
Yeah, a little gush, shall we?
Why not? Because there's been a lot of suffering. I think maybe a little bit of pleasure at this point wouldn't be too bad. So, on Sunday evening, we were lucky enough to see, I know it's already out in the States, but over in the UK, it doesn't come out until August 21st. We got to see a preview of Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma from director Jane Schoenbrunn, and starring Hannah Einbinder and Gillian Anderson. I know there's been a lot of publicity about it. Jane is a fantastic filmmaker. They've directed We're All Going to the World's Fair, and I saw the TV Globe before this, two films that I've absolutely loved. And if you're wondering whether it's three absolute, triumphs in a row, you'd be absolutely correct. This one is fantastic as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. I think it was also really satisfying to have two incredible female leads performing this beautiful cacophony of fun, horror, unsettling at times, but also really knowing of itself at times. And they're both so charismatic and beautiful to watch on screen. And I just think it flows in this gorgeous way. There's these incredible what looked like almost like hand painted pieces of scenery in the back through certain bits, and the sort of the way that color is used. And honestly, I can't fault it. And I wouldn't want to. I just think it was absolutely brilliant and pitched so well. And you know what I love about what we're getting at the moment is this really well married up sense of comedic knowingness and humanity mixed with sort of depraved and horror and but in such a loving way. And I think that's what I love about this, and what I love about quite a few things that we've been able to see recently, and just being able to know and sort of move between these two really distinct types of tone so freely and so easily, and for it to work so perfectly. And you absolutely must see it. A must see in the cinema. We were really lucky to see the 35mm preview at the Curzon, and it was gorgeous. If you can watch it in that same setup, I would absolutely recommend. But if not, please just go and see it anyway. It is easily one of my top films of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. In my top, I was trying to think where about. It's definitely in my top three, if not at the very, very top. As you said, those glass paintings that are used for the scenery are just striking. It's just so assuredly directed. You're taken on this journey that's unusual at times, but you feel completely, safe there. To just fully committed, mesmerizing lead performances. Just beautiful stuff going on. And there are emotions that you sort of have when you watch horror, or particularly for people that maybe don't watch that much horror, that you sort of expect to have when you watch a horror movie. If indeed this film is a horror film, but it's at the very least horror adjacent, and its subject is horror. So And there are sort of expectations that, that these are things that are meant to make you feel really uncomfortable, grossed out, lots of sort of extreme emotions that are negative, whereas there's something just really, I think the best word I can think of is just a fondness that you get watching something like this, that you feel, even when there's, because there's a really brilliant murder sequence in this film that is really stunning, that I could just watch over and over again because it's so well done. But even when that's going on, thinking back to there's a really great, we shouldn't be too spoilery here, should we at all? But, is that even spoilery mentioning that moment? I don't know. It's probably in reviews, right?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
I won't say what happens during the title sequence, but I know that for all of us sitting watching it, there was this great sort of sense of like understanding at what was happening in that moment, and a sense of sort of, because you love this genre, it felt very uniting, and it just it was quite sort of, even though it's a really fun moment, it's not really sad, but it made me just feel very seen, and I very connected to the film from the very, very start, and and I know that that's something that a lot of people definitely felt with I Saw the TV Glow. You definitely get it here as well. It's a remarkable piece of work, and go see it, everyone. You'll have a wonderful time, and I don't really know what more to say without us carrying on for another hour and a half, really, about it. But I couldn't recommend it more. See Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. You won't regret it.
Agreed.
Thank you all for joining us today. It's we have 2 episodes. I nearly corrected myself, but I am correct. 2 episodes left. 3 movies and a full overview to go before we move on to other things. Thanks for joining us today. It's been lovely to have you. Comment, tell us movies that have video game horror stuff. And I'm going to hand you over to Sarah now, who will say goodbye. But thanks very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Steve, and also having you guys tune in and listen to us. Hopefully you're watching the video version of our podcast over on YouTube, or you can watch it on our website, which is uncannycollective.co.uk. You can also watch the video pod. I think it's on Spotify and iTunes, definitely Spotify. If you search for Into the Darkness, you'll find our podcast. You may have originally found us under The Darkness Between Us, but we have now split so that we have our dedicated anthology podcast. So if you want our short stories, that's called The Darkness Between Us. Or if you're looking for our conversational podcast about all things horror in all forms of media, then that's us now that you're listening to, and that's Into the Darkness. So that should be available wherever you get your podcasts as well, if you don't have access to Spotify or iTunes, or as I say, you can watch it over on our website. We'd love for you to find us on social media as well. If you go over to Instagram, we're Uncanny_Collective, and our handles are on our videos as well. I am Sarah Lynham, and Steve is Uncanny Steve. Comment, subscribe, share, repost, all those things, and let us know what you think of the episode so far. Let us know if you've got any recommendations. We've had some in the past that we've incorporated into our schedule, and we also have some that have been recommended that we're hoping to incorporate later on once we move through various franchises that we have in mind. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, yes. So we have a really fun couple of weeks coming up. We're going to Fright Fest, which we go to every year. It's going to be incredible, and hopefully we'll be able to share with you some of our thoughts of things that we see and some recommendations of stuff to watch out for when it does eventually get a release outside of Fright Fest and outside of various festivals. But yeah, it's been wonderful as always, and I can't wait to delve back into Hellraiser in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks everyone for joining us. Into the Darkness. Bye.
Bye-bye.